400 people every time in an event, so which would mean a rotation crowd of about 5,000, which would mean about $1 million worth of PR campaign around it, which is all editorial. There is no branding and there's no push. And I think in terms of, you look at it like an entrepreneur, right? And if I were to speak kind of a value on it, I would say that Live from the Console as a brand today would be valued at about $3 to $4 million if I would just sell that property in terms of its mechanism. And that's the way, even as conventional labels such as ourselves, when we are looking at building properties, how we are looking at it differently from physical to digital is that we really crossing over from this transaction piece into pretty much getting into a valuation piece. How do you build value? And I think social plays a role in building value. It is basically connecting. And where we are going in terms of specifically as an Indian market is in terms of aggregated audiences. Why do certain businesses make sense and why do we talk about it? It's only because they're aggregated audiences. And the minute you're into an aggregated audience space, whether it's a radio broadcast, a television network, a telecom company, or you look at one match in IPL at Mohali Stadium, why would certain things start becoming premium? Because it links back to the question of what Vijay just said. It's a question of a return on investment. When you look at a brand wanting a return on investment, want a live event, or so on and so forth, the only way you can do brand extension is to take it from a conventional world to a digital world. And that's where the ROI starts to increase. Yeah.
So that's good. There was actually a question from the audience about Sony Music and others supporting independent artists. So this is an example of how you're supporting independent artists, and especially using social. And the artists themselves are using social to promote themselves. It's sort of a cycle.
Yeah, actually.
And you invited me to one of the concerts that I went, and it was pretty amazing. There were hundreds of people there, and everybody only found out about it through virally by telling their friends and this and that. There was no ads or anything anywhere.
Yeah, there's no branding and advertising. I think, since you specifically talked about it, and there's a question being raised, I can simply express that all the major labels in India, including Sony and Universal, are looking at emerging artists. What we've done is we've created a sub-brand for Day One. Under Day One, there are 3 initiatives. We are clearly focused on Indian hip-hop. You can check out a product called Zonga.in. Zonga.in has just got announced last week, which is aggregation of all Indian hip-hop under that platform. The second product that we are upgrading shortly is for Chronica. We believe that in the next 5 years, electronic dance music and Indian classical music and Indian sounds are going to merge. And there is going to be a new genre that will emerge as a new sound, which is folk electronic. So we call that Folktronica. We are in that space as independent artists. And the third product is Live from the Console, which is completely social. So it's live performance in a venue, but it's completely socially communicated and aggregated and distributed.
So apparently a lot of people don't have access to Twitter. So if you want to send your questions to the old-fashioned social media, we can do that. And also what I'm going to do is, before accepting questions this way, this is a more anonymous way. You don't have to embarrass yourself. You can ask me any question you want. You don't even have to put your name on it. I won't know. But before I do that, I want to just open up to the audience and any specific questions. One of the feedback we're getting, and no offense to our musical fans here, they said, I'm going to basically summarize this message. I won't read the name, but it says, basically, this is great about music, but what about everyone else who's not in music? And I assume that, and just to get a sense of the audience here, how many people are not in the music industry? Okay, right? So pretty much everyone else.
Okay, so let me answer that question. So the reason there is stuff about music is, I think fundamentally what you want to understand is in the digital space, music is the first product that has been consumed and utilized. The second part is, if you guys are already literate in terms of books, just go and check out a product on booktrack.com. Booktrack is Peter Pan's new investment, which is integrating experience that the users have in terms of reading books and listening to music. It's again a combination. And I think the messaging that I tried to give here, which was more relevant not as music, but to tell you that publishing is actually the emerging story. So when you start looking at books as a structured format of a business in India, there are tons of books that have been digitized everywhere. But I think music and entertainment are the key drivers of most of the businesses. So whichever way you look at it, whether you look at a healthcare segment, you look at astrology, you look at jokes, you look at value-added services, whichever way you look at it, it is media and entertainment, that kind of drives the undertone of how consumer wants to interact with content, because it makes it more interactive. And I think if you really follow the examples I'm using, you'll probably learn a lot in other products that you want to build. Because music business and entertainment business have done a lot of ground. Like B2B, like privacy, like Napster. If you start tracking down all these stories, in any of your entrepreneurial venture, you will see that a lot of businesses went wrong, especially in media and entertainment, which probably should not go wrong in any other way. And the third part, just to say that why, most of the conversations actually in all the forums that go stupid. The reason it actually goes down there is because there is an element of licensing. You can't talk so extensively about gaming because at certain point it kind of starts circulating, because yes, you have an engagement model in the gaming business, but you don't license anything in a gaming environment when you start looking at multi-tier, multi-structure, multi-redemption points from there.
So, just we're gonna open up the audience, but the reason I thought Vijay and Vivek would be interesting people to be here is because if you look back at technology in general, the most adopted technology products, I'm gonna ask the audience, what do you think the most adopted technology product in the fastest amount of time was?
Cell phones.
More than cell phones.
Sorry?
More than cell phones. It was actually the portable boombox tape player. Okay. And then the second product was like the color stereo television. And if I looked at all the products, almost everything was around entertainment. Entertainment's really been sort of the driver for technology, more than productivity, right? So even everybody has cell phones, right? How many people sit and play with their cell phone, either a game or listen to music, or you should listen to FM radio, or you just go to the bus stop, you just see everybody just fiddling around with their cell phone. And that's the thing, that media and entertainment has really been the early adopter of technology, and there's a lot of lessons to learn from that. And even SMEs who've used social media or technology effectively, I think the most effective ones have had some type of entertainment part of it. So if you think about the most memorable TV commercials, or the most memorable television radio commercials, or the most memorable sort of YouTube videos, they all have some entertainment component. It's really what makes things memorable. So I think there's just sort of a thing.
Having said that, in terms of even when you talk about other SMEs, I think it becomes more relevant because when you talk about the entertainment space, the money in media, all of that's very large. And when you talk about general SMEs, the advertising or business development money might be fairly much smaller. So it's about how to use that effectively. So it doesn't matter if it's a car company or a spare parts company or whatever it might be. I think that's where it really becomes more crucial, because the way we applied strategy to our business is to figure out, okay, if the revenue comes from the fan, essentially he's our client, how does he interact with the internet in general? So if you're in a business, let's say, if it's an engineering parts business, and if the clients are going to come and Google a particular product, that's where in fact an AdWords strategy becomes absolutely important, because this is a person and you can identify him by the city you're coming in, and this is a person who's looking exactly what you're trying to sell. And there couldn't be a better space. And especially when it comes to the product business, consumer product, I think almost everyone, it's becoming more and more common, especially in cities. You will go to the shop, look at the product, come back, research it, look for the best price, and then maybe either buy it online or offline. Majority still happens offline. But the whole research and the comparison aspect is where I think advertising has a place, as far as other SMEs are also concerned. And almost everyone, last week I was advising on a sound provider, who is not in the entertainment business, he's essentially an asset business in that sense. But how does he get more clients? And for him, it's to kind of identify where would event managers go looking for sound, because that's his kind of client. But it becomes easier. Of course, in his case, we're not even talking about Facebook, because that's not where someone can go for that. But it would be more Google-centric, not even YouTube for that matter. And more in terms of very web-based or very portal-based advertising that kind of really comes in. But it really boils down to each individual SME and what it's really about, and what their client's entire day is really like.
So sorry, I just wanted to add something for you guys to understand on a very high level, right? So if you really look at where the Indian media market is, right, we're a 10 billion media market. China sits at $40 billion, right? So we going to go from 2012 to 2015 to be a 10 billion to $40 billion media market, right? So when we get to the media market, meaning that is a media spend that's happened by aggregated brands across multiple different ecosystems. So ecosystem would be television, radio, internet, mobile, e-commerce, and then specifically flows down from there in terms of product lines, whether it's music or it's games or it's the developmental verticals that flow down. And fundamentally, if you look at what has the media landscape done till now, sitting at $10 billion, is it means that 50% of that money goes into cricket, 50% of that money actually goes into $7 billion skills. A major part, I mean, what 50%, what I mean is that a major part of that money is actually going into Bollywood. And if you look, a bigger chunk of that gets into cricket, celebrity, and sports endorsements. So there is no money. It is not a question of music. I think if you really start looking at music as a business, it self-generates money because consumer pays that kind of money. But we wouldn't have a business today if consumer was not paying that. But if you look at the whole digital landscape in e-commerce or social media, whatever, the amount of communication threads that happen. Let me give you a specific number. 20% of Twitter's celebrity profiles, which are the power brokers, generate 80% of Twitter's communication. Now it is for you to decide what is bigger. So it is, like Gautam said, that there is an early adoption. There is always a question of a very compelling business which is there, which is media entertainment, and drives it. But when you funnel it down to specifically Indian market, you would find that music business, online music business, or otherwise don't get any of those media spends. There is a massive hard sell for somebody like a visual to go and create an event, because in our market we don't have touring as a business. We don't have editing as a business. There are massive gaps. There is a element of piracy. I was showing about today how piracy happens in India. It's actually not over the air, but it's all retail. You find people here selling pieces of content, which is a little video from softwares to movies to music to whatever, right at a detailed level. And I think there is another interesting thing that you should know, that India is the first global market in which the music industry yet again went and blocked B2B services last week. Songs.pk was blocked in India for all ISPs by the efforts of the music industry. Not only that, we also went and blocked 142 more B2B services which are therefore creating this whole piracy of content, which eventually goes up and affects all forms of business. But no other business has taken that initiative further. No book companies have come further, no book publishers have come further, no other celebrities have come further, because we're still we're in the nascent stage of the digital growth and market has grown. Because we're just a decade-old story from brick and mortar to a digital business. Right? And the second thing that is there is that the minute we went and blocked it, there was a 30% internet traffic drop, because people are searching for content. Now that's the power of social media. That it's moved beyond search and it's coming into recommendation. Today I get so many recommendations that are coming to me directly that I have started to spend less time on contextual search, because I today get recommended for things. So as this is a behavior shift, you will find that social media is multiple things. It also means your own Facebook page or your own Twitter account, and the more you can generate value of that by making that as your ecosystem. So yeah, just remember that It's still an evolving market, it's not black and white, there is a long way to go from there. And we just have to understand the point.
Let's open up to the audience for questions.
I would like to just introduce myself. I'm a music critic and I own a blog called Hip Hop, which is one of the top blogs in the world right now. I have 1 million hits a month. And I deal a lot of my content, a lot of content comes from the label, including Sony. And what I want to
What's
ask...
the name of the blog?
hiphopandmore.com.
Hiphop and?
And more.com.
And more.com.
Yeah. And what I want to ask you is that, for example, the RIAA, which is the Recording Industry Association of America, has done a lot of good work and a little bit of bad work as well in America as far as trying to stop online piracy. But what I want to ask you is, for example, you quoted the example of songs.pk that you actually blocked that website. And my blog too, we've got, I have a team of 3 bloggers now. We are a total of 4 bloggers. And a lot of content is not known, the origin is not known. An artist can put the link on his Twitter account or on his Facebook, or it can leak from somewhere, so we don't really know. And a lot of times we get these notices from the label to remove that content. What I want to ask you in Indian context is that you've done a lot to stop piracy, but what have you done to actually help boost the online sales? iTunes Store is the biggest right now. About more than 60% sales is handled by the iTunes Store, and probably about 65 to 70% in total digitally, including Amazon and other services. So what has Indian labels, Universal, Sony, and everything, what have they done in terms of promoting online sales? The iTunes Store in India has been there for, I think, almost 2 years now, but there is no music there.
Yeah. So let me answer. I think you got 2 or 3 things within your question. It's just not a simple, straightforward answer here. First part, if you're a hiphopandmore.com, you should connect with, I will link to a guy called Jayesh, and you should connect with BJ. These are the guys who are really independent artists. My personal experience is that 10 years ago I saw indie pop was one of the biggest movement in the Indian market, and that's where Khaled and Ishan and all these things came in. These are all...
I only blog about American hip hop and R&B.
Yes, so I'm coming to your point, right? So the first thing that I wanted to address to you is that since you're in a niche segment in the Indian market, yes, there is a 10-year curve of Bollywood and music out of Bollywood, fatigue in reality television, and music coming back on again. So there's a focus back on artists. So it's good news for you. The major labels like Sony Universal are putting in money to promote such efforts, therefore Zomba.in. So that is a good news for you. The second part of your question was, what has RIA done and what has Indian music industry done? I think there are two clear things here. When you say RIAA, you also need to know that that's not a label, that's a society. And there is a backward society in India called IMI, with just 2 different parts, India and MPRS. One of the efforts here has been to, I think the music industry has done 2 things. Fundamentally, I will, I'll not give you too much of time here. I will just tell you that 2 things the Indian music industry has done. First, it has protected itself from a fragmentation in the digital space, which the recording industry in the US was not able to do because they couldn't control Napster. And I think what the music industry did in India was create a licensing for mobile, which created a revenue stream, and the consumer went into a paid model because on each side there was no piracy. And there are still 100 million subscribers, but it's $1 billion, $2 billion worth of trade that consumer does with telecom companies here. So that's what the music industry has done. It's protected the right of an artist and created something called licensing in the digital.
If it's music related, no.
No, it is not.
That's fine.
It is not.
But I just want to say that we will have some time to make after the session's over where you can ask music related questions. So it's not like you're completely cut off, just in the public.
So talking about, from an SME startup perspective and our region, from our region, what would you guys suggest, on how an SME or a startup should budgetize or their budget for advertising on social media, online media. What should be the amount, the percentage they should reserve. So that I think would make it very clear.
So I'm going to just repeat the question to make sure I understand. The question is, how much should an SME allocate towards social media spending?
Absolutely.
Now, it's very hard to give a generic answer that applies to everybody in the world. But I think there's two themes a company should consider. One is, as Vijay and Vivek were pointing out, Vivek in the point of the brands and bands and labels and music, Vijay in the point of saying trying to get reach. Social media really allows you to reach a broader audience effectively. And what I think is the moment in time today allows you today, and I don't know how long this will occur, to create a brand. So I'll give you an example. How many of you heard of Flipkart? How many of you heard of Flipkart 2 years ago? You see the difference? In 2 years, Flipkart has been able, an online brand, right, there is no physical store, and the combination of social media and offline media, it's not completely social, but has been effectively been able to create a top 100, probably a top 10 brand in India. This opportunity